Okay, so in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can find the perfect hashtags for Instagram posts so you can finally start getting rich from hashtags. It took me a bit of time to find the perfect strategy, especially for me, but I finally rank pretty much every time I post at the top post, and even on very big hashtags. So how can you also achieve this? That's what we're going to see in today's video. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ginny, I'm an Instagram and marketing expert, and I help entrepreneurs to grow and scale their service business with the power of Instagram. Okay, the first thing I absolutely want to talk to you about is that your hashtag is not the answer to all your problems. You're not going to suddenly gain thousands and thousands of followers just because you start getting the right hashtag strategy and you start getting views from hashtags. It's definitely not what is going to help you build a six-figure business, that's for sure. And actually, a disclaimer, it took me months and months before my hashtag started to perform well. I was growing 20 to 50 followers per day and even more after with Reels without my hashtags performing well. So you can definitely make Instagram work for you even without the hashtags. There are many other ways to grow on Instagram, such as the explore page, people sharing your posts, and that's actually my favorite strategy. People talking about you. The Reels page, the suggested for you feature. There's so many other ways that people can find you on Instagram. Okay, now let's debunk some myth about hashtags before looking at my specific strategy. You can use and you should use 30 hashtags per post. No, using 10 to 15 hashtags is not going to help you. Trust me, I've tried this, I've tried many other different strategies. It doesn't change anything. It's better to use 30 hashtags. And you can put them in your captions or in your comment section. Honestly, I haven't really seen any difference. And if you hear people say that they have seen a difference between posting the hashtags in the caption versus the comment section, I don't know how they can judge that. It's really hard to tell. It could be because the post is different, that this time the hashtags are performing better. It could be because of the hashtag. It could be because of the time of the day. There's so many variables that it's really hard to tell. So I personally use them in my caption. I prefer it that way. It's easier to edit and so on. But if you prefer it in the comment section, just do what you prefer. Okay, now you obviously have the recent hashtags and the top hashtags. So if you go in the hashtag section on Instagram, you will see that you have the recent and the top. Obviously, your goal is to be at the top hashtags because that's what pop up first. Plus, on some hashtags, you could be at the top hashtags for weeks and even months, which would make you very visible. The recent hashtags, they can help you, especially if someone is actively looking for something. They might look into the recent hashtags, but obviously this is not your goal. Your goal is really to be at the top hashtag. So how do we achieve this? I'm going to share with you my specific strategy to look for hashtags in 6 steps. So stay tuned until the end because I go through with you how to come up with hashtag ideas first, then pick them, and then validate them and use them correctly. Okay, the first thing is that you want to pick hashtags that are relevant to your content. So meaning that if you're a copywriter, you don't want to start using hashtags about small business because it's not as related. So you want to use hashtags that are keywords related, linked to your content. So again, if you're a copywriter and you're going to give copywriting tips, you might want to look for hashtags such as copywriting tips, copywriter, copywriting, and so on. This way you are making sure that you attract your ideal audience, your ideal clients. And not just random people that are not going to be your ideal audience because again, if you attract these people, they might not engage, they might not buy from you. It's really useless. It's better to keep your audience small but engaged and making sure that all these people can eventually buy from you than having a huge audience of people are going to ghost you, are not going to engage with the content, and so on. Plus, if you make sure to use hashtags that are relevant to your content, it's better for the SEO of Instagram, meaning that Instagram might push your post a little bit more. Okay, second point, there are 2 types of hashtags. First one is the hashtags that your audience is looking for. So let's say I'm looking for hairdresser, for example. Go in the hashtag section and then search for hairdresser London. By the way, this is how I found my hairdresser, so you see that hashtags can work. So for example, it's photographers, skincare tips, skincare routine, fitness tips, and so on. So basically, imagine what your ideal client would look for when trying to find you. The same way you would do this for Google, for example. Then you have the hashtag that your audience is using to describe themselves or their goals. So let's say your ideal client or your ideal audience is someone who has a small business and might use a hashtag small business owner or something like this. So you want to use also those hashtags because chances are they might look it up and they might find you that way. To give you a few other examples, it could be calorie content for someone who's trying to lose weight and is counting calories and sharing her journey on an Instagram, or Etsy shop, and so on. So little disclaimer, not everyone has an Instagram, not all your ideal clients are going to share their journey on Instagram. They might not be on Instagram as someone who's going to share content, they might just be there to consume content. So that's absolutely fine. If that's the case, just use the first type of hashtags. Okay, the next point is make sure to pick niche hashtags. You really want to make sure that your hashtags are specific, the same way your business and your Instagram account should be specific and you should have a niche. You want also your hashtags to have a niche. So for example, don't start writing hashtags such as mindset, but think more maybe mindset coach, mindset tips, or mindset tips for coaches, or something like that. So not just diet, but low calorie diet. Not just goal, but goal setter. Not just Instagram, but Instagram marketing. So again, this is going to help you reach your ideal audience and not just some random people. Because if you just use the hashtags diet, you're going to reach such a broad audience that it's not going to be specific. The people who find you might not really be interested in what you have to say. So make sure that your hashtags are specific and not broad. Okay, now that we've been through those kind of rules, you want to make a list. So we have a clearer idea on how to pick your hashtags and so on. We want to start making a list per content pillar. So your content pillars should be themes that you have for your Instagram. So basically the different things that you're talking about on your Instagram. So under each pillar, write a list of 5 to 10 different words or hashtags ideas. Don't forget to use the 3 principles we've been through. So hashtags that are related to your content, using the 2 types of hashtags if you can, and niche hashtags. And then start writing 5 to 10 different potential hashtags. You want to start thinking about it without going on Instagram. It's just using your thoughts, brainstorming, and so on. Okay, the next step is to actually look for hashtags. So now that we have this kind of words that you've been brainstorming about, we're actually going to look for hashtags based on these words. So go in your search bar, go in the hashtag session, and start typing the few words that you've selected under each content pillar. So you should see different options popping up that Instagram is going to suggest that's related to the word you've just typed, or maybe the word you actually typed. Now, we need to be careful with the hashtag we select. You want to select hashtags that have between 5 and 200,000 posts. That's if you have less than 10,000 followers. If you have more than 10,000 followers, you can go further up to even 1 million, but make sure to not use too many of really big hashtags. You really want to have a selection, and I'm going to talk to you about this right now. So you want to make a group of hashtags, so different hashtag sizes. So first you have the small. The small hashtags have between 5,000 and 10,000 posts. Honestly, unless you're completely new on Instagram, it's your first few posts, I wouldn't recommend using hashtags that have less than 5,000 posts. Then we have medium hashtags between 10,000 and 50,000 posts. And then large between 50,000 and 200,000 posts. So again, when you start writing the hashtags that you had the idea of, you're going to see all the suggestions from Instagram, and it's good to use all the different suggestions and see if you have different hashtags ideas based on that. So it could be the hashtag idea that you had first. Let's say it has the right number of posts, then select it. You really want to make sure to go on the hashtags itself, because that's the second little principle I want to go through with you. When selecting the hashtags, you want to make sure that, okay, the first thing was to make sure that you know the right size, that it's not too big or too small. And then the second thing, you want to make sure that the look and feel of the hashtags is similar to you. So what do I mean by that? Basically, if you're only sharing pictures, you want to choose a hashtag that has many pictures. If you're going to share posts that are a bit more written text and so on, then you want to make sure that you pick a hashtag that has more written text, because Instagram is going to scan your picture as well, your post. So if it's going to be something written, you have more chances to perform well on a hashtag that has more written text. Hopefully that makes sense. So you might want to take notes of this, because maybe sometimes you share pictures and sometimes it's written text. So you want to make sure to choose the right hashtags. So always keep that in mind. So let's recap. You go in the hashtag session, you start typing the words that you've selected previously, and then you check that it's the right size. You write it down under your list and make sure that you write down the size of that hashtag. So let's say the hashtag has 53,000 posts, make sure to write it next on the column. And again, make sure to maybe say if it's more image or if it's more text. And you want to make sure to have a selection of those various hashtags. So you have small, medium, and large. Again, you can use Instagram's suggestions to get more ideas, and you should have now at least 20 to even maybe 15 hashtags per content pillar. and obviously make sure again that you write the different sizes and so on. Okay, once this is done, you have a nice list, it's time to select the hashtags for your post. So when making a post, you want to pick and mix, meaning that you want to pick the hashtags from the various content pillars. You don't want to take all the hashtags from one content pillar. You want to kind of make a mix of all your content pillars. So you could choose 10 from the first pillar, 10 from the second, and 10 from the third. And then the second thing, you want to make sure to mix the sizes. So when picking again per content pillar, you want to make sure that you choose small, medium, and large as well. And remember that if you're going to use a picture, you use more picture look and feel hashtags, if I can call it like that. So making sure that you should have written if it was more a text hashtag or more a picture hashtag. So make sure to pay attention to this. So when mixing the sizes, it really depends. It will depend on the size of your account. If you have a very small account, you want to use more of the small hashtags. So let's say 20 small, 5 medium, and 5 big. But if you have a bigger account, you want to do the opposite. So a little bit of small hashtags, and maybe even not, depending on how big your account is, but you want to use a little bit of small, a little bit of medium, and more of the big. So again, it really depends on the size of your account. Why you want to do this? Because ranking well on hashtags depends on how much engagement you're going to get on your post. So it's not because you're a small account that you can't rank on big hashtags, but let's say it's less likely. Again, it depends on your engagement already. If you feel like you have a very engaged community, you can get away with bigger hashtags and ranking well on them. Okay, that's it. You now have my very specific strategy to select, pick your hashtags and use your hashtags. The little thing that I want to say is that your hashtags might not perform well right away. You want to take time to use them for at least 10 posts to see how they react. Often, I realize that when I switch my hashtags, it takes me at least 10 posts to perform well on these new hashtags. And once I've performed well on these hashtags, I always perform well on these hashtags. And remember that your hashtags are not going to work if your content is not great. Having the right hashtag strategy is one point, but if the rest is not great, you're not going to perform well on hashtags. Okay, hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to do it and hit the bell, because I'm sharing bi-weekly videos on how to grow an audience on Instagram and convert your followers into paying clients.